The clock is ticking. Sequence 55. He lowered the phone and swallowed hard, then he looked at Maddie directly into the eyes. Vanessa and Andrew have been involved in a car accident, he said. They rushed through the hospital corridors. Maddie's heart was pounding fast. She couldn't afford to delay. Her sister was injured and Chard had not told her how severely or how it happened. His explanation had been brief and to the point, telling her only that her sister and Andrew had been involved in an accident and they needed to get to the hospital. Quickly, they ran towards the reception desk to inquire about Vanessa. The usual smell of the hospital filled Maddie's nose. She felt her stomach do a flip-flop and bile rose to the back of her throat. She swallowed hard. "Excuse me, my name is Matilda Munga. My sister and her husband were brought in after a car accident. We would like to see them." Maddie addressed the lady at the reception without a greeting. The receptionist looked at her for a moment, taking in her appearance, and quickly checked through her list. "Is it the pregnant woman?" she asked. "They are being attended to by the doctor. Please have a seat. I will inform you once the doctor walks out." She gave her an apologetic look. Chard held her hand. "You need to take a seat," he said. She didn't argue as he led her to the chair. She sat down. She was not settled after receiving this bad news. Only knowing what was going on was going to put her at ease. Maddie was crying quietly as they waited for the doctor. She knew Vanessa had been jubilantly excited about having this baby. She couldn't comprehend what kind of world it would be. Vanessa and the baby didn't make it. Maddie wouldn't survive the loss. Her mother would skin her alive. Speaking of her mother, Maddie had called her on the way to the hospital. Claire and her mother were currently driving to Lusaka. Chard squeezed her hand and assured her everything would be okay. "How can it be okay? Trinity is nowhere to be seen and my sister and her baby are battling for their lives. What will happen to my baby if Andrew doesn't survive this, because he is the only one who knows where she is?" "It shall be well," Maya murmurs. A few minutes later, Maddie gets down on her knees. She closes her eyes and with her palms facing heavenwards, she began to silently pray for her sister's life and her daughter's safety. After she finished praying, she calmly sat in a composed manner facing the wards. After what seems like an eternity, the doctor finally stepped out. Maddie stood up as the doctor came towards them. Her back ached from sitting upright for so long on the hard wooden hospital bench. "Doctor, how's my sister?" she anxiously asked. "Is she all right? Your sister lost a lot of blood due to the accident. We performed an emergency cesarean and delivered a baby girl. The baby is doing well so far. Your sister must have been almost to term." "She was about 37 weeks, Maddie said quietly. "Well, I am afraid your sister has fallen into a coma." The doctor said, "After we delivered the child we placed her into a medically induced coma because of the shock her body went through. If her brain and other organs can recuperate, she might wake up and be at her normal brain function." "What do you mean might?" Maya asked. "People react differently to extreme blood loss. There's a chance the blood loss was too much for her brain and she might never wake up." "No," Chard shook her head. "What of her husband?" Maddie asked. Her voice shook. "I am sorry, but her husband didn't make it," the doctor said. "Your sister will be moved to the ICU where we can monitor her closely, but you can see her. The baby is in NICU and is being closely monitored too, but he appears to be healthy. You can see the baby too if you want to. Once more, I am sorry for your loss." After the doctor left, Maddie was shaking so badly she could barely stand. She burst into tears and Chard held so she wouldn't fall. "Oh, my baby, where am I going to find her now?" Kagi had just walked into her brother's compound. She had received a text from an anonymous number telling her that her brother's life was in grave danger. She had dropped everything she was doing and rushed here. Ruining up the front steps and across the veranda, she tried to ignore the sinking feeling at the pit of her stomach. She had tried calling Jericho's number on her way here, but his phone rang unanswered. She knocked on his front door. "Jericho. Are you in there?" she asked anxiously. No answer. She knocked again and again. Nothing. Finally she held the doorknob and realized that the door wasn't even locked, so she opened it and peeked around hesitantly. The room was dark. She felt for the light switch and when she found it, she clicked it on. There was a large pool of blood on the floor just inside the door. "Oh Lord," she exclaimed. She closed the door behind her and ventured into the hallway heading for the living room. That's when she saw him. He was lying on the corner of the living room floor, a pool of blood beneath his body. Aggie's heart stopped. There was blood everywhere. It was dripping down the wall and seemed to cover everything near and far. His clothes were torn and his body looked like he had severely been beaten. She ran to him and sank down beside him, wondering who could have done that to him. She got a pulse and noted that he was breathing, so she pulled out her phone and called for an ambulance. "Hold on, brother. Please stay with me," she said, tears rolling down her face. She waited impatiently, but the ambulance seemed to take forever. Aggie was no sobbing. It was difficult for her to be calm in such a situation. She couldn't handle losing her brother, not in this manner. When the ambulance finally arrived, they rushed to Jericho and lifted him on a stretcher. "He is breathing but barely alive," she heard one of the attendants say. "Please do what you save his life. He is the only brother I have, please." The ambulance asked her to follow them to the hospital. She called her sister on her way to the hospital. By the time her sister got to the hospital, Jericho was already being attended to. They asked them to wait in the waiting room. The police had already been notified, and when they came, Aggie told them everything she knew, even if it wasn't much for them to go by. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Why did you even have your men involved? Chrissy asked Thomas on their way to the hospital. "I have told you already, I wanted to help find Trini." She shrugged. "See how you have risked my sister's life to save that brat." "That brat is your sister's child. Maddie is not my sister. You should have let her handle her own issues. Your men really messed up. Couldn't they have been discreet in pursuing the car? It was an accident, and from what I hear, your brother-in-law lost control of the car. All this is Matilda's fault." "How is it her fault? She shouldn't have influenced Vanessa to leave her husband." Thomas shook his head. "You really hate Maddie a lot, and if anything happens to Vanessa, I swear I will never forgive her," she said, her voice hard and cold.